notification bell and subscribe. Follow me on Facebook at the Speaker Podcast, YouTube, and TikTok at Camille.Essick. And I would love to hear from you. You can send me an email at the Speaker Podcast at gmail.com. If you haven't heard, I have some new products out available. I just released my e-course. It's called The Master Plan. It is available on my website as well as my latest e-projects, my ebook, Women Empowered Unleashed, and my On the Air. It is a great digital product for podcasts and digital creators. You can go right now to CamilleEssick.com and grab those things. Without further ado, the Bellingers are back. I'm super excited to have them here. Welcome back, family.
Ooh, it's so good to be with you.
Yeah, thank you for having us again, baby.
No problem. And those that don't know who you are, please introduce yourselves to the audience.
Sure, ladies first, right?
Well, I guess so. Lady Ty Bellinger. We are in the big old state of South Carolina. Summerville, South Carolina, to be exact. Where I am the wife of this young man here, who's my pastor and husband of First Fruits Community Church in Somerville. Got to give it up for them. The First Fruits Community Church in Somerville. I'm a mom. I'm a sister. I'm a daughter. I'm a wife. I'm a first lady.
Good wife. Real good wife.
You're sweet. But
so disclaimer, audience listeners, if you have not been on here with the Bellingers, it is comedy from beginning to end. Not so much Lady Ty, but yeah. So just to put that out there.
Yeah. And this is why I praise so much.
And I'm Pastor Bellinger, her husband, pastor of First Fruits Community Church. And I'm just excited to be here. And what an honor. Like, if you're not following Camille Essick right now, you're way behind the ball. You need to follow her on all the platforms. I think you got about 10,000 plus downloads on your podcast. Like,
almost.
She's doing her thing. Y'all need to follow her now. If not, I'm unfriending you when I get off here, because you need to follow this woman of God. She is going great places and doing great things. So, Camille, it's an honor to be here with you.
Thank you, sweetie.
Thank you so much. I'm almost there. I am 632 downloads away. So,
okay.
Come on.
You know, we got to stay on top of those statistics. You know,
that's right.
Because I'm like, you never know. Somebody could walk up to you, and you got to be able to spit it out. So, yes, I actually had someone ask me, and I always practice what they call the elevator pitch. And I was able to just do it. And they were just like, oh, wow, like you really, I was like, yes, I better know,
Exactly. That's right.
So I'm just excited and thankful. I think since the last time y'all were here, I've been picked up by Amazon Audible. So now I'm streaming on Amazon Audible as well. And we're streaming in 49 countries and 952 cities. So we are working on it.
952 cities. Okay. We bow down to the Lord and you, because you're doing your thing. Look at you.
Oh God, yes. But it's not about me tonight. It's about y'all. So there's some things I want to hop right into, just because marriage and ministry can be a very fine line to walk, and just really understanding as far as being married. I guess my first question to y'all will be is, how do you balance your marriage and ministry, and you're not giving each other what's left over after church?
Wow.
Leftovers are good. But wow, how do you balance that? Well, I mean, I think it's really being mindful, intentional. And very intentional. The reason why I say that is because, like, I feel like there's this conversation in marriage around balance. But I don't always feel like there's always a correct balance all the time, in a sense. Like, there are going to be more times where I have to be more pastor than husband, right? Or vice versa. And so I think it's just being very mindful and being very intentional and listening to like the cues and the clues from your woman or your spouse, because, there's sometimes she'll just say, hey, look, we need to spend a little bit more time together. It's been a little while since we did this. And then I might like, oh gosh, all right, let me pause, move everything out of the way and make that happen. So, mindfulness, like in intentionality.
My thing is intentional. Like, I totally agree with the whole balance thing. My rule of thumb, though, is when I'm there, I want to be present. I can't be everywhere all the time, helping everybody all the time. When I am with him, I want to be with him. I don't want to be with him and the phone, him and the members, sometimes with the kids, but you know what I mean? I want to be present in every moment that we do get time together, because like you said, there are times that I do have to say, okay, he's got to do this, or I have to do this, and I have to give more attention to the kids or give more attention to this ministry or that thing. But whatever I'm doing, I just try to be really present in what I'm doing. And I think that's something we had to learn. Yeah, that's not something we just got like this.
Right, 21 years. Like,
yeah, that's something
it's still kind of like learning, right? Because
it
doesn't mean it's like ever learning. But like you have to always be mindful. You can't just think like, oh, okay, we got this down packed and now move on to the next thing. Like you always have to really be thinking about one another, always really kind of checking yourself, because it's very easy to get caught up in ministry. It's very easy to get caught up in work. It's very easy to get caught up in so many different things. So it's just always being mindful of those. I think that's really key.
So because you hear stories about ministries and marriages that kind of break up and fall apart because there's an assumption that certain things are okay, and we're just focused on the marriage, or the ministry, I should say, especially now in the realm of social media, when it's what's looking good on the flyer, what's looking good for the reel, what's looking good for the branding of the ministry versus the purpose of your marriage, and understanding that just because you look great, in public, but are we aligning with our assignments behind closed doors and not just for the ministry? Because that's one component of you. Like there's so many other parts of you if you're working in corporate America or if you're an entrepreneur. And so us as humans, we're so multifaceted. How do you really appreciate the person? And I don't want to say separate the call or the anointing from them, because that is a part of them, but just dealing with their humanity and not just their divinity.
Yes, that's it.
That's good. When you were talking, my mind went back to in the very beginning. Our church is 14 years old. So in the very beginning of our ministry, our communication is for the most part pretty good. That's something. Right. I mean, we ebb and flow with that, of course. But from the very beginning, one of the biggest things I had was we were starting a church. He was starting a church. He was called to do this. I believed him. I supported him. But I was his wife. At that time, we had we had our older kids, and we were taking care of my niece and nephew that are our children now, and we're planning. I think we may have had one child at that point.
Right.
We had AJ. But I was always going to be a mother. I wasn't just going to be first lady and come and sit up in the church and my kids are jacked up somewhere, wherever else. No, he always had to know that I was going to be their mother. I wasn't going to have my assistants taking care of my kids, and I wasn't pushing them off I was always going to be mom. I was always going to be wife.
Yeah.
Always. I mean, that doesn't change. I respect him. I don't ever disrespect him, in his role and who he is and his call and his anointing. But I think that that's something that we started in the very beginning.
That's right.
And we tried our best.
Fought for that, fought ourselves basically, or had to like kind of create boundaries and learn how to do that so that people aren't just overstepping that and interrupting like what we're building as a family, as a couple, as dad and mom and all those different roles we play. You have to be able to learn how to set those boundaries, right?
Yeah,
that's good. And I think that's interesting because I'm a PK. And so by the time I was a teenager, I was really resentful towards the ministry to a degree because I felt like there was so much time and energy placed into being present for the church, and always showing up. But then when I needed my parent, it was assumed that I know the word and I should know XYZ, when it was like I didn't need a minister. I needed my parent.
Exactly.
And there was no clear line of separation between that. And then in certain areas, I felt like treatment on things were harsher because we had to maintain the image of being the PK and not causing attention. And so there was that stress too. And you hear the saying like, oh, PKs are the worst. And it's like, it's not true. We weren't doing anything more or less than anybody else's child, but because we have that label, it was just assumed you're supposed to be the perfect kid. Your grades are supposed to, all these things. And so by the time I got to my senior year, I already knew I'm getting a scholarship, I'm going to college, and I'm leaving, because that, with like so many other things, I was just absolutely over it. And I wanted to find myself, find my voice, and find my identity, because being told no so much, but not being explained to why no. Just do what I said, and we don't do this, we don't do that. And so restrictive, but the why behind it, like, why can't I do XYZ? Why can't we go here? Why can't it was just like a dictatorship.
Right. Yeah, that's something that I fought for. Like I said, from the rip. And I think it has something to do with the fact, from my past, my grandfather was a pastor. He pastored for 50 some years before he passed away, but I was very close to him. So I was almost like one of his children, we were just very close. And so I understand that side of it as well. I understand the restrictions and the not understanding why we can't do what we do. And I made it a point till I was like, we're not going to do that with our kids. Like, they're kids just like everybody else, and so we're not going to treat our kids any different just because of the call on your life. Right. We're not going to do that. And I mean, I'm grateful for the examples that I did have. How you see people do things the wrong way and you're like, I'm going to go the other direction. I think that's just kind of how I was. I knew that I wanted to go another direction with that. And we've just been real intentional about it. And like I said, I fought for it. I mean, there were times I'm like, no, we can't just say no. We need to explain why they can't.
Why.
We are sometimes they are the only kids in church for Wednesday nights and running everything. You know what I mean? So if they want to do something, then we got to be okay with that. You know what I mean? And still allow them.
I think it causes more harm or more detriment when you don't explain the consequences behind choices, and then out of lack of information, lack of proper life application, to go explore, try things, and then you get yourself in situations, and then you don't know how to even get out of it because you were never talked to about certain things. And so then you don't know what spiritual door that could open. And then you spend a couple years, or some people their whole lives, trying to fight, things because they open a door out of pure curiosity, only because that parent did not take the time back when they were younger to explain. And so I thank God, 180 back, but there was a time period where I was away, because angry about certain things, wanting to find myself, just a lot of other things. So I ventured down several paths. And the thing is, some of my friends did too, and they didn't make it back.
That's right. Wow. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. We talk about like really like with our children a lot, like how, I mean, yes, because we are who we are, there is a standard, right? There's a level of like, hey, there are certain expectations, right? But that shouldn't be just because you're a preacher's kid, right? It's just, it's for several reasons. But at the same time, we've always stressed the fact or the truth that we don't want our kids to be church but have no relationship with God. We want it to be authentic. Like, we want to help them grow to want to love God in the first place, and not be forced into that. And so, like, we always try to figure out, what does that look like? Yes, you do have to come to church, right? Yeah, you do have to be involved, but also not forcing their hand, or, or again, kind of going back even to marriage, like the time we spend with our kids, are we present? Like, are we there? Like, I've gotten that right sometimes, and I've gotten that wrong, and admitting that too, I think, not just to yourself, but even to the kids. Like, I know just recently, I think, I was around my daughter, but I noticed I was like reading some emails and stuff on my phone, and she was talking, and I missed what she said, but I caught it and I realized it, and so I took my phone. I said, "Hold on." I took it. I like shut it down, put it over, and I was like, "Look, I'm sorry. I didn't hear what you said because I was reading what was on my phone." so just being real with them, I was like, but this is important. Let's talk. And then Madison and I get talking. So it's really important to be intentional how you spend time, how you encourage them to draw close to God, and not just close to God, but close to us. Like how building that relationship with our kids. Like I also, I just started reading a novel to my two youngest ones, like almost every night. Like I'm reading a chapter out of a book and just, letting them have fun, just spending time with dad, not pastor, not anything else, but just hanging out with dad, and I think those things are really important.
That's really good. So even in those things, as far as with your children, but then also just within your own marriage, how do you manage, like, because things happen and you don't always see eye to eye. So how do you manage conflict in those spaces and you not go below the belt? Because you hear stories about people that they all the way to the parking lot, they're going in on each other and they getting good morning, praise the Lord. It's like, no, y'all, I saw y'all at the gas station.
Exactly.
So it's like, how do you
First Lady Tina.
like, so how do you manage those things where it doesn't contaminate the atmosphere when it's time to come into, or if he's preaching and you're just like, no, that was for you. No, you talking about yourself. Like, how do you do that? Or everybody's standing up and you're not sitting on him because you're like,
right.
So how do you manage those things and still
walk
in a poise or grace, about yourself, like still being poised and grace,
right?
Because we're human,
right.
So how do you manage that?
I say from my observations, from when I know I was wrong or whatever the conflict was, right? From my observations, it takes a spiritually mature person to be able to understand that while yes, like the issue is an issue, there's something more important at hand, and it's not about me and even how I feel at the time. And that's a heavy load to bear, because it's not saying go into church, put on a mask, and act like ain't nothing wrong. Because we've even had that conversation, like, I can't come here and act like ain't nothing wrong. But we also know, like, there's a certain level of assignment on our lives that we can't even, just like anybody else, like when you go to church, you're not really, like, yeah, you're bringing stuff to the church, but you don't want to bring so much of a burden to everybody else. Like, you need to think about greater than us. Like, we're here for something bigger, while at the same time saying we got to take care of this. And a lot of times we'll get it right, or we'll try to get it right before all that goes down. So we're not in the church like looking at each other like, "Hey, bless you." But I mean, it's not easy. Like
some shady bless you,
right?
Yeah, bless you. Everybody give honor to God. And
you know how church people pray those nice, nasty prayers. May the Lord reward you according to your works.
No, I don't think we've ever done that.
Shady prayers.
You might have felt like that sometimes, for sure. Lord bless her, But no, I think it's some of that. I mean, I don't know.
No, it's some of that. It's some of that. I mean, I've told him that no, I can't sit in the church and be mad at him.
Right.
Mad or get up and sit there and listen to him preach. I can't do that. I can't do that. Now, what I've had to learn,
but you have,
what I've had to learn is that, what was I reading? I was reading, or maybe I heard someone say this, like when we're so consumed with our life and we allow those things to, he kind of hinted to that, like overshadow, like the call on our lives and the purpose and the fact that it's more about me. It's not just about me. Sometimes I have to kind of humble myself a lot. I've had to humble myself a lot and be like, it's not about my feelings right now. It's not about those things. I'm still a daughter of God, even though I may be upset. I didn't like what he did. I didn't like what he said, but he can't change my relationship with God. So am I going to allow him to make me stay home from church because he made me upset, at home? And I thought about it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that I never thought about it.
I'm like, baby, you coming to church? You coming to?
I thought about it. So it's been a tough. There have been times when it was a tug of war But for me personally, like, I mean, call it spiritual maturity or anything, my relationship with God meant more to me than that particular moment. And it was never, I won't say that there'll never be anything that terrible, but because I don't ever want to say that. But I always prioritize God and my relationship with him over that moment, over that argument, over that, you know, whatever. My relationship with God was more than that.
Right.
So that's how.
And if you don't mind me saying something else too, like just because the anointing falls during a period of time like that doesn't mean that took care of the issue. So like it could be a fiery service, like the Lord could come in, like people getting saved and delivered, set free. Man, the anointing flowing, right?
Because the people needed that.
That's right. Right.
So what? Then you go back home and act like nothing happened? No, you still got to go home and take care of, you know, and get things right and have, you know, talk and whatever it may be. So
absolutely. And I've always heard that the woman is the fragrance of the house. And I've actually many years ago, I was at a ministry where the husband and wife they got into a disagreement that went on for months, to the point where it heavily affected the services, and she would deliberately come in late, you know, and you could feel the tension, and it caused the church to split.
Good Lord, I believe it.
And that ministry to this day has yet to recover from that, and they're still functioning, but it just never recovered fully from that. And it was bad to the point, like, he was sleeping at church because at home it was so bad. So he was sleeping in his office at church, and I remember telling someone, I said, man, it feels like when your parents are fighting, you know, it was terrible. And still trying to have church, but it caused such a division that the church split. And so I think it's really important, like you said. I don't know if, I think looking back on it now, both sides were so big on winning the argument and being right that, you know, it's like, do you want to be married or do you want to be right?
There you go.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
And seeing that at the end, he ended up kind of, I don't want to say folding to her, but she got what she wanted. And it was literally over something now that doesn't even matter.
Right.
But she was so big on getting her way. She even put the ministry at stake because she wanted what she wanted. And sitting back watching that now, because that happened when I was like in my early 20s, and seeing that now, here I am at my big grown age. It taught me a lesson as far as a wife, what not to do, what resentment can really do, and how it can taint everything around, and even how people interact with him as far as with business or other things because of you. Because the scripture says that when a man marries us and finds us and makes us his wife, there's a favor that comes with that. And I just saw so many things, how pivotal, how critical the role of the woman is in the marriage. And she really, even though he's the head, she really is the neck and can turn everything. And just to really see that, it was like, wow. And to this day, I mean, even then, but after that, I never looked at her the same. Like I always, there were other things I remember about her, but that's one of like the top. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
So
I think it has a lot to do with like recognizing your flesh, or, you know, how we say in the church, your carnality, your selfishness, because it's like whatever the tension is always, you can always point it back to something spiritual and carnal. Like one person is selfish, the other person is on track with God, or there's just some type of conflict there. And instead of being selfless, you know, like it's kind of like what you said, like people are in it to win, but it's like marriage isn't about winning per se. It's about like yielding, I feel, to one another, trying to understand one another, grow with one another, learn one another, so that you can accomplish what God has put y'all together for to accomplish, you know? So, you know, whether you're a pastor, whether you're just a married couple, right? I mean, there's purpose in marriage. Like, you don't just marry somebody because, hey, okay, I need somebody. No, like there's purpose behind that person you marry and that relationship that God has now put a stamp of approval on. And so, like, we have to learn to get past the selfishness and be more selfless. And that's what I feel grows a marriage, keeps a marriage, because you're not trying to pick up old stuff and, you know, stab your spouse in the back for something they did a long time ago when you get upset over something, or, you know, it's like really about crucifying yourself every day.
That's really good. I always think about the term we hear, weaponizing, you know, those things that you discuss in those private moments and not taking those things and turning them into weapons in times of contention or disagreement. Like that's what I call fighting below the belt. And
Yeah,
even when you disagree, you can disagree, but do so
Right.
fight
right,
fair, like fighting fair.
right.
That's right.
And like this is your spouse, first of all. Like why? Like shouldn't you really be fighting at all? You know, it should. You know, it's like yeah, it just doesn't make sense. Why do I want to pick up something and destroy the closest thing to me?
Mm,
You know, why do I want to ruin that, risk that relationship? Like,
Pride.
is that love? You know,
It's pride.
like real love is gonna break through and be honest and sincere and like work towards overcoming whatever those flaws are within. Because one thing I done learned is once you get married, oh, you gonna find out all of your flaws. Like most times it's like, I know more about you. No, when you get married, like you're gonna know more about yourself than you know now. Like you can be like, oh my God, I thought I was over this, or I thought I was past this, or I thought I was healed from this, or I have an issue I didn't even know about. Like, thank God, because God put that spouse in your life, it brings it to the surface, but then you got to deal with it. You can't just do whatever you want with it, right? It's actually designed, it's one of God's ways on how he makes us whole.
that's good. So this question is for you, Pastor Bellinger. How do you serve her when you're accustomed to always being the one receiving accolades? Like, if that makes sense. Like, how do you keep her lifted up when, because a lot of times the church is always like the pastor, the pastor, the pastor. It's like, but he has a wife too, you know.
Yeah.
And so, how do you make sure that she's still affirmed and validated and poured into, and level that out?
Yeah, I'm just laughing because I'm thinking about my memories and stuff and some of the things we've been through, and it's like I can get up in front of the church and be like, oh, you know, let's really like celebrate our first lady, and I do that, of course, authentically. I always lift her up, right, and celebrate who she is and all of those things. But what good is that just in the church? Like, as a matter of fact, it should happen in the church if it's really happening at home. Not the other way. Like, so like, and I guess what I'm saying is, so then what I'll do is like, okay, let's go spend time together. You know, let me just love up on her. You know, things we've done all these years, whether it's going out, just I'm a sporadic type of person. So like spontaneously, even the other day we just got up, went down to Daniel's Island, ate at a restaurant, just had a good time laughing at people. I mean, you know, all types of stuff. You know, took a ferry ride, a round trip ferry ride from Daniel's Island to downtown Charleston back in the rain. But so what? I mean, just to have fun, you know, just spend time with her. I think like those are things, you know, just making her laugh, being there with her, you know, whatever it is, you know, just being alongside her. You know, I mean, we're doing something spontaneous literally tonight when we get off this podcast. So it's like that's how we do it. Like I feel like I always try to, I'm not always perfect at it, but I always try to show her the value that she has. There's one thing I know and learn, like you got to speak into the life of your spouse who they are. even if they don't see themselves for that, even if they don't think you're fully that. You gotta say, no, baby. Remember, like, no, you're more anointed than you think, or you have all of this. You gotta know those gifts. You gotta know that person and speak to them and just love up on them. Somebody said, "Oh, how romantic." That's Adrian. That's right. You're right. You gotta get romantic with it, brothers. Listen, I'm telling you, don't be churching it up like I did when I first met her. Be calling her, talk about praise the Lord. Now she didn't want to hear no praise the Lord.
Leave Fred Hammond where he is.
I'm like, hey, sexy. What's up, baby?
Wait, Jodeci me, please.
Exactly.
I'm fiending for you.
Oh yeah.
See, they don't think I know, but let them know, Camille.
Y'all go watch the first interview. He has a stamp. Okay, so we're not going down that rabbit hole tonight. So
yeah, we're not gonna go there tonight.
But yeah, y'all can. Fred Hammond has his time and his place. So does Jodeci.
There you go.
Right.
Yeah. So then my next thing I want to know, as far as for the viewers and listeners, is protecting each other from the church or just the public, because again, social media age, and so it's like people want to know everything, or I wonder if they like ice cream, just just nosy.
Everything.
And so, or even with things that are not true. So how do you shield each other from the public in church? Because when you are in leadership, you're more so in the spotlight. So how do you manage privacy, and not to be secretive, but just guarding and managing privacy?
I demand privacy. I demand it. I mean, there are times where I'm like, I'll say that, and when I say that, I don't mean but I mean, I'm very intentional. I'm like, there's certain parts of our lives. I mean, yeah, we talk about being transparent and how we're relatable, and I thank God for that. That's something that I always want to be. I get that, but that doesn't mean everything about me. You know what I mean? Right. That doesn't mean from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed. That's not what that means. I can be vulnerable with you, but you don't have to know all my business.
Thank you.
And there's a time and a place for everything. And my personal opinion, social media is not that time nor place, but I know that people are always they're always itching ears. We've been in situations where people have taken things that he's taken his kindness for other things, and I just kind of had to.
That's a good way to put it.
I have to shut it down. I'm not going to let you destroy who I know he is, because he may have reached out.
Saved us all. We are saved us all.
That's right. Exactly.
The earrings come off. I forgot.
Thank you.
Don't take them earrings off.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's like Black Woman National Anthem.
Listen, I don't know what she take off, but I see her take off in something. I know something about to go down on shoot.
Yeah.
Get the car. Get the car. Just go to the car.
Exactly. I'm very protective. And I guess he's more the social media person in our relationship.
Right.
So, there are times I'm like, all right, dude, that's enough.
Right. Like, but it goes back to like what we're saying, like communications. Like she'll say, like, did you just really post that? Or did you just really share that? And I'm like, yeah, I did. What's wrong with that? And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, delete. So it's just, we had to learn these things. Or I had to learn some of that stuff.
No, we did.
But I like the idea of, because that's just because we are in the public eye, or we're serving people, doesn't mean they have full access. Like again, one of my, who I call kind of like a mentor, like told me, it's like, you invite somebody to your house, right? They come in, but they're not going to go into your bedroom. There's boundaries. You have to set boundaries and figure out what that looks like, and make and not just for us, but for our kids. People crazy out here.
Yeah.
Man, and so like we got to be very careful and just mindful, and I think of how we protect one another.
That's good. I think so too. We live in a time where there's such an I want to be churchy, but the spirit of offense towards the church anyway. And
Yeah.
there's just people out there that are just looking for a reason to throw more accusations, and sometimes we have to be mindful to not give them ammunition, just because we can do something, and it could be, like, the most innocent thing and from the purest intention, and someone can take that special moment and pervert it and turn it into something that it's not. And because, um of the time we're in with social media and that mindset of some people that just wanna be messy Bessie. And so, it's
Yeah.
just, like, monitoring and being careful about what we
Mm-hmm.
say, how it's interpreted, and sometimes that backspace ministry, just let us do its due diligence, so
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
Because
right.
there's like no, and this might sound kind of rough, but it's okay. Like there's no soul, there's no business relationship, there's no profession, there's no hobby more important than your family. Period.
Mhm.
No, I love all the members at our church, but none of them are more important than my wife, my kids. Period. Nothing. So like, yeah, even the other day, and I think, I mean, I guess it's kind of a web here because we're talking about several different things. But what I'm like thinking about is like the other day when you had some things medically, right? We were doing some, so like I was scheduled to go to Atlanta for a week, and I was like, no, like I don't ever call out on my job because I'm a bivocational person, right? I've been in a career for 20 years as a consultant. And so I just reached out and said, listen, I'm not coming to Atlanta this week because of this. And they're like, absolutely, go for it, because I never asked for that time. But I said, this is very important. I need to be here. They thought I was actually joking. Like I thought, no, I'm staying because I need to be here for my wife, period.
Absolutely.
So like you gotta be there, you gotta protect, you gotta set boundaries and make sure people know that very clearly. Because at the end of the day, guess what? None of them gonna be there for you. That sounds
That's so good.
that sounds bad. Maybe I should say at the end of the day, when everything really hits the fan, who's gonna be here in the end? When I'm 80 something years old and I need some help, who's gonna be helping me? So you gotta create those boundaries and not let anybody make you feel a certain way about it. Because people gonna talk, let them talk. But exactly like Malcolm just said, that's real. That's real. You know.
Yeah.
And Adrian says, Pastor Tanya always used to say, don't let your good be evil spoken of. Yeah, so that goes back to the guarding, right? I was just teaching that the other night too. Like, you just got to be careful what you're doing, as a married couple. Like, have you ever, I might get in trouble for this, so just mute me if you need to. But, like, I am not that person that's okay with, like, running a ministry and all you see is me. Why? Because think of all these women out there. Oh, where's his wife? Where's his wife? Some of these women try to take advantage of that. So, or when am I trying? What's my intent? Like, no, listen. Like my ministry starts at home. So you're not gonna see flyers with just Pastor Bellinger. No, you're gonna see my wife on most flyers. You're gonna see my wife in church communications. Like, no, like we're in this thing before our church started and after it's gone, or whatever, after we move on, whatever it may be. Like, so there's no way I'm going to put like my family at risk, my marriage at risk over ministry, other places, and what trends are. No way.
And that's a good point. And I wanted to ask you, Lady Ty, excuse me, but as far as like being his wife and not being a co-pastor, because you see situations where they automatically culturally within that congregation will throw the label of co-pastor on the wife automatically. I don't know where that started. Like
Me neither.
when I grew up, the first lady was the first lady.
First
But
lady, exactly.
somewhere along the line, it was like, oh, co-pastor so and so. And I've seen other first ladies to say, no, I'm not a co-pastor. I'm his wife. Don't label me as the co-pastor on his flyer.
That's
I'm his
right.
wife. And so when he said that, that immediately made me think of that. So what is your take on you know, making it known, yes, I'm on the flyer, but I'm not the co-pastor, I'm his wife.
I just can't get rid of that word intentional. Because and this just recently just came up because we did a flyer, and when he showed me the flyer, he had both of us on there, and when I'm fine with that, I don't have a problem with that. But the way it was labeled, someone could look at it and say, is she the pastor as well? And I was like, we got to change that because I'm not the pastor. I'm not the pastor. He didn't call me to that.
Don't put the warfare on me. Take that
right,
down.
exactly.
Right.
That's not who he made me to be. That's his role. So I'm not letting anybody put that on me. I refuse to do it, you know? And I mean, people have said, you know, they make jokes because he hasn't, some people think I should be one thing and, you know, God is calling. Well, when God calls me to whatever he calls me in, I'm going to know for sure.
Thank you.
And I don't need anybody else to tell me
I see you a prophetess.
Right. I know when God is speaking to me. So not being afraid, I think that not being afraid to say no to culture. Like, I understand that that's what people are doing, and that may make some ministries more what's the word? Relevant or
palatable, whatever you call it.
But that's not who God made me. So I have to be comfortable in that and be okay with that. And then I have to share that with, you know, whoever I have to share.
And most people that do that, and it's not their role, they got insecurities and they're trying to be validated. And so they find out, oh, I can just take on this title now. And now I become somebody I'm not. But what happens is, okay, they start getting all this validation. Oh, I'm celebrating this woman done stepped into her ministry, or this man doing. But then all of a sudden, it destroys the marriage because they're out of order. And like, God ain't called you to that. You know, if God has not called you into that thing, that assignment, don't step into it. Be who you are. It's okay. It's okay that she's my wife. We call her first lady of our church. But what that means at our church is, she's my wife. That's right. She's my wife, and then nobody else is. And she is a woman that speaks into the lives of the other women. She helps lead the women, but she ain't calling herself the apostle, prophetess, priest,
like God
high priestess of first fruits.
Right. It would be different if God called me to that, but God didn't call me to that. That's not what he called me to do. And so not allowing people to push you in an area where God hasn't put you.
So what about having that same autonomy for your children and not pushing your kids into being the next whomever and allowing them to be great? Because maybe they're called to medicine or to be a judge or an attorney, even though they may be saved, but letting them be great in the marketplace and not pushing them. Because you see a lot of people that have pushed their kids into certain offices and the kid never wanted that.
Right.
Or they did it out of obligation, but deep down, their heart was not actually there.
And you get in trouble with God because of that. Because now, like God's saying, oh, I have a purpose for your son and your daughter, but you push them into something that's not my will. So not only is your child in trouble, you in trouble. You know, so it's like, no, like AJ, like whatever your passion is, whatever your purpose is, it's my assignment as a dad to help lead you into whatever that is and see that. Most parents push them into something they want it to be, you know, or maybe they haven't fulfilled like the way they expected. So, hey, my son's going to be the one that's going to carry it on. Who said who? You know, that might be the case, but that's not always the case. So
do you think it's them living vicariously through their kids sometimes?
Yeah. And most of the times when you see that, that's what's happening. And it's like, no, like my role as a parent, our role is to seek God and see the thing that God has put in them, the gifts he's put in our children, nurture those gifts. And help them be in that relationship with God, because then it's God that's going to lead them into their purpose, and you don't push them into something they shouldn't be in, because man, there's so many horrible things that can come from that. The stress, the pressure.
The pressure.
Gosh.
Yeah.
It's horrible. It's sad, you know. and wonder why, like, you know, kids run from the Lord or run from church. You know, it's just because you can't do that. Like, and it's not even a pastoral thing, right? It's for all marriages, you know. Don't force your kids, right? But show them the value of like a true relationship with the Lord. Like, let them see that not just at church, but at home. Let be real with them, like, and then encourage them. And I think that's the route to go, because you can really destroy a child by those types of pressures and unrealistic expectations that not even God has for them.
That's good.
And one thing I was just thinking about when he said that is that not only this is something that we're learning as a couple and as parents, but we still have standards in our home. Yes. So just because our kids, you know, they're kids, so we still have a responsibility to train them up in a way. So sometimes I feel like parents take that and they use that as a crutch, and they're like, you know, I'm going to allow my kids to do everything they want to do, and then God's put on the back burner. Right. So I think that we still have to be very careful and mindful that we still have to train them up, you know, in the way that God has called us to do. And then, like he said, then speak into them, whatever that thing is that God has placed in them. We can't place it in them. God has to do it. That's not our job to place it in them. If we see something, we can call it out. Yeah. You know, but we're not the ones that's going to put it in there. But we do have to have standards. Like, my kids are not staying home and I'm at church and they're just going to stay home. Like, they're still going to come to church. Like, whether they wanted to watch whatever. There's times they're going to still go to church, you know, but I'm not making them go to church I want them to want to be there. I don't want to just force them. I want them, like you said, I want them to actually want to participate, you know. And like I said, they're kids. So they're going to go through all types of emotions and feelings and all those types. That's fine. I want them to be kids, but I still have to train them. And I can't use that as a crutch.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Understood.
So this is push that in there. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. This is really good. It's just like you were talking and it made me think, like, growing up, there was no option. Like, Saturday night, you had your clothes laid out, ironed, really ready to go. That pressing cone was on the stove.
Exactly. It wasn't an option. Yeah. And I think that there has to be a balance. Like I said, there has to be a balance. Like, there shouldn't be a dictatorship, like you said. But again, there still has to be a standard. You know what I mean?
It was though me in my house.
We gonna share the law. Right.
Yes, it was not a request.
Right. Oh, I know. Trust me.
And just, but I mean, looking back on it now, when I think about the resume of, I'm third generation apostolic, so growing up in church, it's like I think I've done everything in church but preach, and it's like because you know we were there. They helped turn the lights on, helped to turn the lights off. I've cleaned bathrooms. I've folded church programs. I've, you know, gotten trash up. Things that people leave. Back in the day, we had pews with the pockets and gum and nasty. And back in the day, we had the hymn books. We had to get all the hymn books and the church fans. You know, I had the family with the lady with the gloves, and she's looking up. You know, that it was a funeral home fans, the Martin Luther King fans. Exactly. You know, and it was the one Jesus was knocking at the door at the Lamb. You know, the church fans. That, and you know, I've taught vacation Bible school. I've been secretary and choirs.
Yeah,
all that. So, and it's just like, but you don't realize you learn a lot of skills.
Right.
You know, you get a unique skill set.
Right.
So, I mean, didn't always love it, but looking back on it now, it's like, okay.
Like, it wasn't like all bad, right? I mean, it forms in you principles and things of that sort. And when you were saying that, it made me think about like all our kids do. And recently I was just like telling them, like, you know what? Like, I don't say it much, but I really do appreciate like all the things you do, and like they actually do it willingly. Like even a little girl now at the church, she's running the cameras, the live stream cameras.
But like, it teaches you service. It teaches you service.
Yeah. So I think it's just thanking them too, and like actually showing them appreciation. You know, not so much that, you know, they did it because we asked them, but they actually did it. I mean, I don't know. I just think you should always thank your children for like helping out and doing stuff that sometimes kids don't want to do, but they still do it. I just like, I love how our kids serve. I just kind of give some props to our children. Our kids are awesome. All from the oldest to the youngest. Like, it's just amazing. Yeah, like, yeah, I love it.
Awesome. This has been a great conversation. And I just first want to thank you all for joining me. And before we wrap things up, do you have any takeaways or nuggets that you want to leave for the listeners and viewers? And then also where people can connect with you on social media?
Wow.
Takeaways and nuggets.
So extra. Oh my God.
He is so extra. You know what?
Why you gotta be extra, man?
Yes, he's very extra. But you know how earlier you were talking about loving the humanity of your spouse or whatever? Those are the things that I love about him, because, you know, he's the one that's always going to cut up. He's always going to make me laugh. He's always going to, you know, and so that's what I love about him. Yeah, he's a good preacher. He's gotten better over the years. He's getting there. But I didn't marry him because he was a preacher. I didn't marry him for the power or for the position or what I thought. I didn't marry him for those things. I married him because he was good to me. He treated me like, he literally, this man, he's just always been good to me.
I need one of them things to be like, all right, go ahead.
See what I mean?
We don't have the hoop tracks over here.
Hoop track, right? Come on, Pastor Moore. I need you to sponsor.
They gotta pay me. I'm sorry.
They gotta pay
I'm
you.
not shouting out any brands but my own, unless you.
Thank you.
What they say don't count unless you can't swipe the credit card. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Don't tell me. Tell me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, I guess that would be my takeaway, is that he's Pastor Bellinger hasn't been good to me. Abraham has been good to me. And so I respect him as pastor. I respect him in all these different hats and things that he wears, but I enjoy him. I enjoy spending. He makes me laugh. We have a good time together, and that helps the hard times.
Right.
You know, because there are times that are hard, and I have to remind myself, you know, of the good times. Remind myself of the way that he makes me feel. And I mean, he's just been really good at that. So
you can't keep talking like that, man. I'm about to turn red, man. You know what? White people kind of turn a little red when they start.
Oh God.
Essick. What would my takeaway be? Well, I would just add on to that like really like be mindful of your spouse, who they are. You know, think about your family, think about God, how he sees you treating them. You know, just always be mindful. That word mindfulness is really key, because the more you're mindful of your behaviors, your actions, your attitude towards your spouse, towards your children, and mindful in the way that you're authentic and open with the Lord to be corrected and get it right, then that's it. Like, always be willing to be corrected. Like, always be willing to make things right, you know, because you're not going to get everything right. But that the most important ministry is family. It's your home, you know. When you're gonna go build a church and your house be destroyed, you know, the Bible even says, like, you're worse than an infidel. Like, if you ain't taking care of your kids, you know, like, take care of your family first and watch what God will do. He'll put so many blessings on you. And I just love hanging out with her too. I like to make her laugh because I love hearing her laugh. You know, I love looking into her eyes, man. I love a whole lot about this woman, y'all. I can't share. There's boundaries, y'all. What y'all doing? Can't share all that stuff up on here. But I just love this woman. 21 years.
Laid it on thick. Boy.
Oh my gosh. Oh my God.
Good. Jesus.
We got to wrap this up. See, I knew, but this is not bad. This is not bad. You behaved yourself today. You get a star. You get a gold star.
Yeah. Part 4 will be there. Okay.
He did good
today.
He did good today.
He did good today.
I tried to.
Goodness. Well, yes, thank you all so much for joining me. I really appreciate sharing your wisdom with us. We really appreciate it. And I hope everyone that you got something from this, whether you listen now or later. We will not have a live next week only because I'm preparing for Heart and Soul 2024. That will be on October 31st at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm hosting a panel with 8 amazing women, married, single, divorced, and dating. And we're going to have conversations about love, marriage, and relationships. So that is a conversation you don't want to miss. Please go to my website at CamilleEssick.com, stay in the loop. And you can also follow me across various social media streams. And I would love to hear from you all. You can connect with me, sending an email at thespeakerpodcast@gmail.com. And I have new ebooks and products available on my website at Camille.Essick. Be sure, if you have not done so, lean on that share button and subscribe as well to my YouTube channel as I work to build it up out here in these digital streets. So with that being said, you all, this is Camille
Essick. Get her ebook. Get her ebook. Come on, I got it. So listen, don't. You gotta get it. It's not even showing up on the camera, but you know,
Women Empowered Unleashed. It is available on my website. Women Empowered Unleashed. It's an ebook. My first ebook specifically for women. I am working on some other things going into 2025. So thank you for the plug. I really appreciate that.
It's worth it. Very valuable. It's worth it.
Thank you all. And you all be blessed. Y'all be safe out there, especially those that live in the Carolinas. And even those in Florida. It's just a lot going on. So keep people in prayer during this time because it's hard to experience things like this right on the heels of Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Exactly. Yes.
So we want to keep the mental health of others in mind during this time. So you all be blessed. Have a safe weekend. Good night.
Good night, y'all.
Good night.